All right, it looks like we are live. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting edition of Omnibros Live here on YouTube, part of the Omnibus Collectors Network. I am so very happy that we could be here tonight to talk some comics with all of you guys, everybody in the chat, everybody watching later. No matter where you are, have a great day, evening, morning, whatever time it may be. I am so happy that you could spend some of it with us here at Omnibros Live. I am your host for this evening, Giovanni Menendez, and I am by myself for a little bit. My co-hosts will be showing up pretty soon. They are trying to get on board as quickly as possible. That's perfectly fine. Instead, while we wait for them, no, not solo tonight. We will be joined by two guests supposedly. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But they will be here shortly. In the meantime, I wanted to tell you guys about our wonderful sponsor that, makes this episode possible. This episode, of course, is always brought to you by our wonderful sponsor, InStockTrades.com, where you can get your collected editions and manga up to 50% off. Loyalty discounts tack on for an extra 2% to that. And if you order $50 or more in your collected editions, you get free shipping. Who doesn't love free shipping? I know I do, and I know you probably do as well. So, fantastic customer service, wonderful packaging that you can only get at InStockTrades.com. Hey, your co-host of the evening. How you doing, buddy?
I'm choking. That's how I'm doing. Okay.
Fantastic. Welcome, Lou. I am so happy that you could join me. Ryley will be
Hey.
here shortly. And yeah, okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So I brought the topic idea for tonight that I wanted to do a ranking episode. I've been wanting to do it for like, I'm gonna say like 2 weeks now or 3 weeks, but I just left it on the back of the list, if you will. And today was that perfect opportunity to do a ranking episode where we talk about just a simple list. In this case, we're going to be talking about Marvel comic events because when I think of event comics, the one company that that I think of is Marvel because they have a ton of them, like X-Men, Spider-Man, uh, whole company events. They do. I think it's like up until recently, they were doing like two or three per year, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So I found this list on the website tier. What's the name of the website? I forgot. Tiermaker.com. So there you go. They are you can make like lists and tier level stuff and whatnot. And I thought it'd be pretty cool to go over the events and rank them, like the unofficial, official ranking from Omnibros Live. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I mean, we are the only members in Omnibros that really matter. So yeah, our list is full. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hell yeah.
Ryley will be on later to join us.
Yeah, he's having some little technical difficulties with his computer. So if you want to blame somebody, blame his computer. Um, yeah. The chat. What's up, chat? I completely ignored you, and I am sorry about that. Lots of good, cool people joining us. Civil War II best event. Man, I mean, uh, I'm instantly remembering Riley's rant on Civil War II and how magnificent that was.
Oh man, I remember that. Yeah, Ryley was he got drunk. Or
Yeah.
he got at least. I'm reviewing that.
Was it the bourbon? I think it was bourbon, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, he was drinking bourbon during that.
Ugh, oh boy. Austin, Evolutionary War and Atlantis attacks tied for number one. You know what, Austin? I'm going to disappoint you. Evolutionary War and Atlantis Attacks are not on the list. I didn't make the list. And next time, that's something I learned a couple minutes ago. Next time, I will try and make a list with like all the titles
Yeah.
because I didn't know you could do that. I had no idea. So we only have a handful of events, like the really big ones, to play around with. But I'll make a site. We can do more ranking episodes later on.
Have you lost weight? You look like you lost weight, man.
I wish.
You look slimmer. You look slimmer right now. That's
I don't
all.
know. I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you. Yes, Riley's rant makes it best event by default. I'm looking forward to it. That's why I wanted to make the list because I know he's very opinionated about his comics. So
Yeah,
uh,
I'm interested to see what Riley's list is as far as like events and how he agrees with it or not. Civil War II would probably be at the very bottom of that list.
So yeah, we're gonna do from F to S level. But now that I'm looking at the list, there are a bunch of events that are missing. But we'll add them. You won't see them on the actual episode that we're recording now, but we can add them verbally as we go along. And if you guys have not noticed, I am stalling a little bit until our man can get here because I don't want to backtrack after we've ranked stuff and he'll want to talk about that stuff.
He's always fashionably late.
Yeah.
He's probably combing his hair or something.
Oh, that's right. The power of slimming PlayStation clothing. Yeah. Little PlayStation action right there.
Holy crap. Oh man. Are you gonna see Last Blood this weekend? Are you a Rambo guy, Gio?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go to the movie theaters to see that. Like, I'm not too excited
Yeah.
about it.
I think I'm gonna hold out and just wait for it to come home to theaters. I mean, come to VHS, come to Blu-ray.
Oh yeah,
I'll end up picking it up.
shouldn't be too long. It should be like 3 months. That's how long it takes nowadays for Blu-rays.
That'll be out November. Last Blood will be out by November. I guarantee it. It's not gonna stay long in theaters. I love the few films.
What was that? Sorry.
I love the first few films. I love all four of them.
Oh, now you're gonna make me yawn.
I'm sorry. I'm tired.
Yeah, they're classics. Where are you guys starting from? 90s or 80s? It has a little bit of everything, but I do see some 80s events. Secret Wars, I should say, and all that stuff. Infinity Gauntlet, all that stuff. So, yeah, my man has the right idea. I really want to see Ad Astra, like badly.
That looks good, man.
Yeah, they're saying it's like one of the best space movies ever. I'm like, what? Okay, now I have to see it.
Yeah, Brad Pitt's having a hell of a year, man. He was great in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I need to see that. I didn't watch it in theaters.
You didn't see it? It's good. It's very un-Tarantino until the last 20 minutes or 15 minutes where it goes full Tarantino.
Ooh, nice.
It's good. No, I dug the hell out of it. It's probably my favorite film this year.
Nice.
Yeah, I loved it. So far, there's still a few films to watch at the end of this year. I'm just excited for Joker. Joker's my most anticipated coming in the next few weeks. So
I really want that to be great. I know it'll be great, but I really want it to be a smash hit and to win awards and all that stuff because it's about time that more comic book movies get recognition like that.
Yeah. I can't wait, man. I can't wait. A lot of the more super left wing sites, they're kind of bashing it simply because it's like, oh, this is dangerous, and I'm shut the fuck up. I haven't understood that mindset.
I don't think so.
I just want to see a good movie, and Joker looks incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait.
We got a couple questions here. Marcelo, hey, what do you guys think about the Deadpool Omnibus by Posehn? I can get it for $30 now. It's a good deal, but I don't know if the run is good. I've only read the first couple issues, and I liked it. I think it's a good beginner's story for Deadpool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I would get it, especially for $30. That's a steal.
$30, that's solid. I mean, if I remember right, the binding's not that great on that though, right?
I think it falls apart some copies.
Yeah.
But
I
still,
think
for $30, you know.
I mean, if you want to take the gamble, the binding is probably, if I remember right, the binding is shit on it. It's still a great read. It's still really fun. Poseidon's writing is really sharp, and so is Duggan's.
Yep.
Do you just want to get started on this? Because I don't want to be here too late, and Ryley,
sure.
Whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, share screen, application window, share. Okay, whoa, all right. Can you get, how do I do the thing? Like this? All right, can everybody see the list?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Ooh, okay, I like this. This is cool.
As you can see, there are not a lot of events. Yeah, I know Marvel has way too many, but I think this is a good starting list, and maybe we can do another episode later on. But let's start. Let's start right here with the first one, Planet Hulk.
Ooh, that's tough.
I mean, talk about an emblematic story for a character like the Hulk.
It's up there. It's really up there.
Would you
and
say
we should preface this? This is our opinion. So before anybody in the comments or the chat gets real pissy about it, it's our opinion. Relax.
I would like to think that our viewers are pretty awesome and they'll know that this is just our opinion. But like but yeah, and just this is our opinion and we're just having fun with it. And don't take it too seriously. We're just having fun talking about events.
Yeah.
But I think like when it comes to the Hulk, there's not a more emblematic story in modern times than Planet Hulk because it has a little bit of everything. It has the action and intrigue, and it's a new setting for the character that I think a lot of people can get into and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say, damn.
Where would you place it? It's definitely not F nor D.
No, it's not D nor C. I would slap it on the A. Simply because before Al Ewing's run, like if people told me where can I start with Hulk, I would say start with Planet Hulk. So I would probably put that in your A. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just for that, how popular it is, I do consider it an A. I was gonna go B, but I think A is appropriate.
It's floating around there. It's really floating around in that A or B territory. It's not S because it's not like whoa. Like when I think S, I think like game changing, like legendary stuff. You know, like the first Secret Wars, which we're gonna talk about soon. Or Crisis on Infinite Earth, something like that. You know.
Yeah. Well, next up we got Infinity War from the 90s, part of the cosmic saga, if you will. What do you think about Infinity War as an event?
Oh man, you know what? I've never actually read this one.
I just like to think of it as the not so hot sequel to Infinity Gauntlet with doppelgangers. You know, to me, like the Gauntlet was the more iconic storyline, in my honest opinion. But I like the idea of continuing the saga with Adam Warlock and the Gauntlet, and of course all the heroes fighting doppelgangers. Yeah, I don't know if the writing still holds up. I haven't read that in ages, so
yeah.
I think we can do a C for now.
I think it's fair. I mean, based on everything that I've heard, I think C is pretty fair. I see people in the chat seem to be agreeing with you. C or D?
C or D. Okay. Nice. I think it's fair. Okay, let's talk about Infinity Gauntlet next. One of the most iconic.
Do you mind if we skip ahead and get to like some of the more controversial picks? Let's do Civil War 2 next, just for shits and giggles.
Civil War 2. Obviously, this is no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Are we going with the F or the D? Because it's pretty bad, man.
There it is. F.
You're giving it the F, really? It's that bad?
I
Like,
never finished it. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I started it because I was curious about it because Ryley made that epic rant. I'm like, I want to see what's going on. But I read like the first 2 or 3 issues and I dropped it. I didn't like it whatsoever.
it
I
was
thought it was
bad.
boring. I thought it was a mishandled event. It could have been a lot better. There are First of all, you didn't need to call it Civil War 2. You could have named it something else. You could have made it about because at the same when that was coming out, they were doing Inhumans versus X-Men, which is also on this
Right,
list.
right.
You could have made that the central plot of Civil War 2, but instead you wasted time making it about whatever the hell was going on with Captain Marvel and Iron Man and the Mosaic character and I don't know. It was a lame attempt at being like a minority report kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, like I don't know what Bendis was thinking when he was writing that, or maybe because that was towards Bendis's end of his Marvel stuff. Maybe he just stopped giving a
Mhm.
shit. Marvel at
Yeah.
that point.
I
Uh,
remember that She-Hulk that fired a grenade launcher at
oh my God.
Thanos
Yes,
and he survived and then like she was killed or something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't
it
I
was.
think it's F material. I'm sorry.
It's that bad, huh?
Ugh.
I
Boy,
don't, you know what? Yeah, let's slap the F label on it simply because of the fact that I only read one issue of it and I said, yeah, I'm done. I'm good.
boy.
I don't need to see anything else. I'm good.
Yeah. What do you think about? We talked about Civil War 2. What do you think about Civil War 1, the original Civil War?
Okay, so Civil War One, that's kind of a controversial pick for some people, simply because of the fact that it's well, it it was marred by delays. It had a lot of problems in terms of literally screwing up the Marvel universe for years. Because
Mm-hmm.
after this, Marvel just kept doing event after event after event after event, trying to kind of. It felt like they were trying to kind of recapture that that big bang of when they first dropped Civil War on people, and everybody was like in a mad rush, and they just could never get it again.
Yeah.
But that said, I remember when this was, I don't know if you remember, but I remember when this was coming out, it was fucking huge. It was everywhere, my local comic shop. Like, you could
Mm-hmm.
not walk in without seeing Civil War promos, Civil War issues. Everything was tying into it and stuff like that. And it was actually genuinely, it was actually at the time a pretty neat concept where you'd have literally the Marvel universe is split down the middle as far as characters.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I looking back on it now, I remember fondly the good things. I don't know, man. I think for me, it's probably like in that A or B range.
Okay.
But people can
Uh,
make a strong case for it being even S simply because of how big of an impact it had.
um, I don't put it simply for the fact that I just didn't really dig the ending to
Oh
me
yeah,
at least.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
I mean, the true ending of that is really in Brubaker's Captain America run,
Mm-hmm.
where Cap ends up dying. Everybody remembers Civil War for the ending
Oh,
being Captain America dying, but that doesn't happen in Civil War. That actually happened from
exactly.
Brubaker.
Hmm. If that would have happened in the actual event, I think it would have caused a more visceral reaction. I think,
Yeah.
um, and I do think like, oh shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say. Civil War. Oh yeah, I remember about Civil War. I even like. I wasn't reading comics when that was coming out, so I didn't go to any local shops or anything. But I do remember the story about Captain America dying. That even made it to radio stations reporting on it and news articles. I'm like, what? So that was pretty monumental, I think.
Stephen Colbert did a whole segment on it. He got Captain America's shield. Do you remember that?
Yeah, okay. So that was from that. Okay.
Yeah, that was
Hmm.
old. That was that time. If I remember right, I think Stephen Colbert. I think that's what ended up happening is that Stephen Colbert ended up getting Captain America's shield from that event.
Okay. Cool.
It's cool stuff. Yeah. Wow, a lot of people disagreeing, saying C and a D. Okay, that's fair.
Oh, C and a D.
Yeah,
Wow.
some people don't like Civil War, man. Or
Ay, ay, ay.
maybe I'm looking at it through rose-tinted glasses simply because like that was the big event for me growing up. That was like my Secret Wars, you know?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I do like the whole idea of pitting a side versus another side. So that was, you choose your camp of who you want to
Right.
root for. So that was
Right.
fun, I guess.
I mean, I mean, ideally, I would probably side with Tony on the Registration Act, simply because if we lived in a world with superheroes, you're goddamn right, I would want them to be registered
Hmm.
and to be held accountable for their actions.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yep. Well, there you go. Fight it in the comments, guys.
know.
Good luck. All right, let's continue with the Avengers. What do you think about Avengers Disassembled?
Okay, that's about a C for me.
See, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like the implications are fantastic for the Marvel universe, I think, but like it's how many issues? Like 3 issues? 4?
It's not that long, and Hawkeye dies like in the first few panels of it. He sacrifices himself.
It had some really pointless deaths, in my opinion.
It did. It really did. It's just dumb, dumb all the way through, but fun. You know, it was fun, and it split up
Yeah,
the Avengers, and we got
yeah.
some cool stuff out of it.
I know guys like Omar hate it, but I like it because it introduced us to the new Avengers, and that's my favorite Avengers book. I know I'm a normie. I'm not too hardcore into the Avengers, but I do love New Avengers a whole lot.
Is
So,
that
but
that's the Norman Osborn of New Avengers, right?
that was when Wolverine and Spider
Oh,
Man joined up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay.
And then Secret Invasion happened, which it is it here? Yeah, it's in here. I'll talk about Secret Invasion in a little bit. Or actually, let's talk about it. Secret Invasion is my favorite Marvel comic event. I'm sorry, it has
Wow.
everything I want in modern. I should say in modern events. Sorry, in modern events from the 2000s up until now, it's still my favorite because I like the conspiracy aspect and the invasion thing with the scrolls and who can you trust and all
Mm,
that stuff. And I desperately wanted that to happen in the movies, and it's sort of happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but not really.
mm.
So I loved it. I was such a big fan, and I know it's flawed, and a lot of people were angry about it, but I liked it. What can I say? To me, at least, it's between a B and a C, and I'm gonna
Okay.
upset a lot of people, and I'm gonna add it to B. So suck it.
Good job, man. That'll work. And that's
Okay,
the bottom line. That's the answer.
yeah, that's the answer. It's a solid B. Very good. Like most of my grades in college.
Oh man, you did better than
Uh,
me. My grades look like a
also,
stuttering problem.
um, continuing the Avengers line. How about A versus X? Avengers versus X Men.
Can I be honest? I hate Scott Summers' portrayal in that story.
It's
I
pretty
don't dig
bad.
it.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. It's all over the place. Some of it doesn't really make sense. Character motivations just go thrown out the window simply for the story. I'm gonna give that a D, man. I was never a huge fan of it. I mean, it's cool, Avengers versus X-Men, but this was at the point where it was like, oh God, we're doing hero versus hero stories again, and I just want the
Again.
X-Men to
Yeah.
be the X-Men again. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
gonna give this a D.
Yeah, the only redeeming thing about it to me was when they first land on the beach scene with the helicarrier and the Avengers team pops out and they start fighting. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. They're trading blows. But soon afterwards, it just oh man, the whole Phoenix 5 thing, I thought Cyclops was being very more dickish than usual. And yeah,
Than usual.
whatever.
Than usual.
Yeah. The whole Black Panther versus Namor thing was awesome. I love that. But
Right,
everything else,
and
mhm,
that Black Panther versus Namor thing, that pays off in another event that we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
mhm. So yeah, I think a D is sufficient. Um, let's go with how about
Ryley
an
says,
X-Men one?
Ryley says, Ryley says let him in, Gio.
Oh, okay. Let's switch screens for a second. Add it to stream. Hey,
What's up?
You're right.
sup? How do I do this again? Oh my god, I suck. Oh, okay, got it. Full screen layout. All right, can you see it? There we go. Ryley, you've missed us talking about these books, but don't worry. I think you will mostly agree with us. I think.
I definitely agree with Civil War II. If there was something under F, I would put it there. Avengers versus X-Men, I'd probably say a C instead of a D because I felt like there was more good. And I don't agree with the Louise's note about Scott's portrayal because I really like when they kind of morphed him into the new Magneto, more or less. It made him more interesting for a few years before he disappeared. Infinity War, maybe. I'd say that C, probably a good place to put it. Infinity Gauntlet, I'd put higher though than that.
You haven't gotten there yet. You're way ahead
Okay,
of
cool. Avengers Disassembled, I might put at a B. Secret Invasion, I'd say a B, but a lot of Secret Invasion is because of how well it read with a lot of its tie-ins, especially the ones that Bendis wrote.
Mhm.
So that kind of moves it. Without the tie-ins, I would move it down. Luckily, they put the omnibus with all that material in it.
Yeah.
Civil War, I'd put that at a B personally. Planet Hulk, I'd keep as an A though. That's my thoughts on all those.
All right. Cool. All right. Let's do. What are we doing? Monsters Unleashed. This is something I have not read, but I know Ryley has read it.
I've never read it.
It's pretty inconsequential. I'd put it as a. It's not as flat out just offensively bad as Civil War II. I'd give it a D just because it really doesn't. It doesn't go anywhere. It established Kid Kaiju, that new Inhuman character, but it didn't really do anything outside of there. It wasn't terribly interesting. It just kind of was.
Mm-hmm. It did get that huge ass book. That I kind of want that book because it's enormous. The monster. What was it called?
Monster book?
No. Monster Bus was the omnibus. Whatever.
Oh, yeah,
It's the big book like the King Curly.
I think it's just like Monsters Unleashed, Monster Sized, or something like that. But I honestly thought about getting it too just because of how big that book is.
There you go. Let's do Infinity Gauntlet. Where would you guys rank that?
It's a B for me.
That one for me is at least an A. I remember reading that and just being astonished with like it was just really good as far as how it flowed. I really loved the storyline and I loved it with I also read the stuff that precluded it with like Thanos Infinity Quest with Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
And it really fleshed out a lot of stuff. It was my first exposure to a lot of the cosmic Marvel stuff, and it was a really, really great experience for me.
To this day, Infinity Gauntlet has one of my favorite comic book scenes of all time, and it is when they're doing the clutch play with Surfer on the board at the end of the fight, and I think it was Surfer, right? And he's near the ending to try and get the gauntlet and all that stuff, if I remember correctly. I loved it. I thought it was a badass event, one of my favorites, one of my favorite cosmic book events in recent memory. I'm just pulling at random here. Let's do another event that I don't like. Fear Itself.
Oh, who wrote that?
Matt Fraction.
That's E. Let's put that in the E rank.
That one, I would say the same that I did for Monsters Unleashed. It's not offensively bad like Civil War II, and it actually gave a lot of good tie-in stories. A lot of really interesting tie-ins, like the whole Juggernaut Colossus story arc from Uncanny X-Men. The arc in Thunderbolts was really cool. but the storyline itself within that book, while it
Mhm.
started out kind of cool, it really fell flat by the end. It just didn't stick the landing at all.
It
Yeah,
was horrible.
it was really cool that every single Marvel book had a Fear Itself tie-in. That was really awesome, and I did like you said, I like the beginning and the whole concept, and everybody getting like neon colored weaponry. But
Yeah.
by the end, I was just yawning. I didn't really care at all about the event.
Every single one of those characters looked like they were ready for a rave. I hated
Mhm.
that.
They looked like they should have been in a Tron movie.
It
And
looked
they had like how many point ones after the final issue? Like 5
oh
point
my
one issue?
god, yes. Or
There,
Seven point
there
one.
were there were there was 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3, and
Oh
each
my
one of
god.
those was like one of the. It was an issue for Cap, an issue for Thor, and an issue for Iron Man. And there was also a 12-issue series, the what was it called, the Fearless or something, and that's kind of led into Cullen Bunn's Fearless Defenders that came a little bit after.
Mm.
That's also where I think Fearless, or maybe it was in Battle Scars, is where they introduced Nick Fury Jr., who is now just Nick Fury.
Fury, Black Nick Fury. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was right before Marvel Now, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a little bit before Marvel Now.
Because they had to figure out how to retcon a Black Nick Fury into the Marvel universe proper to match the thing.
So everyone knows exactly who he is.
Yep.
We've talked about Planet Hulk. What about World War Hulk?
Oh,
A lot of fun, but not nearly as good as Planet Hulk. Planet Hulk was just so quality. The story was great, art was great. World War Hulk was it's just Hulk smash is all it is.
Yeah.
So I'd put it somewhere in either B or C, depending on what y'all think.
I would say C. Simply because it was hyped up so much coming off of Planet Hulk. It was like, oh shit, like Hulk's coming back. He's pissed off, and really, there was nothing of value there. It was fun. It's fun, but all it is Hulk go boom boom for like 8 issues.
I think like the major, for me at least, I don't know, the major problem with that is that at the end of Planet Hulk, you get a major status. You alter the status quo, and you have a reason for the Hulk to invade and do the things that he's going to do. But by the resolution of the event, you're resetting the whole thing to where you can't have your former hero now be a bad guy and piss off everybody. So you got to reset everything. I don't know. I thought the ending. I didn't like the ending.
It did lead towards a couple cool things, though. Like the Incredible Hercules series was awesome, and it led towards the introduction of the Red Hulk. And while Jeff Loeb's run was not stellar, it wound up leading towards Jeff Parker's Red Hulk, which is one of my favorites. Then when Pack took over on the Hulk again, his material was actually pretty good. The Incredible Hulks material, Follow the Hulks, World War Hulks. It was pretty fun stuff.
So C it is for World War Hulk. Let's pick out something random here. How about we talk a little bit about House of M?
I love House of M.
S.
Yeah, that would be, for me, I would say it's an S. It's the highlight of any event that Bendis wrote, in my opinion.
Yep. Agreed. And you want to talk about status changing? If you ask anybody that was reading that book at the time, that panel where Scarlet Witch is going no more mutants blew everybody's fucking monkey mind when they first read it.
Yeah, it's pretty iconic. I mean, how long did the status remain unchanged after that event? A couple of years, right?
For a while.
I mean, they're still, like, even now, they're still reeling from that. Like, even in issues of Hickman's X-Men, it mentions House of M happening when it talks about how many mutants there are in the world. And from then, it's always like, the mutants were decimated. We had the whole decimation story arc. And then after that, it's like every event most of the events in the X-Men books is them figuring out like something that can bring back mutants. Like when through the entire Messiah Complex trilogy, it's all about the first new mutant being born. And then they go through the whole thing with the Inhumans, and it's like, you know, we have however many mutants left, and now we're going to war against Inhumans. Like, it's always coming back to what Bendis did in that book. And I think it was just, I couldn't think of it being any better.
It's so good. From beginning to end, it's really, really good. And the thing is, you don't need to read. You'll be fine just reading House of M proper. Some of those tie-ins, remember, they are bad.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Since we're talking about X-Men, we talk a little bit about Age of Apocalypse.
Never read it.
I'd probably give that a solid A. It has aged a little bit, but for what it does, and like being a series that's made up of a bunch of miniseries, it sets up such an interesting world in the new Age of Apocalypse universe, and such an interesting storyline. The first time I read it was actually when the Omnibus first came out, and I was just engrossed in it from page 1 to the very end. I had such a good time reading that book.
I barely everybody was reading about Age of Apocalypse. And how long did that last? The publication?
It was like 4 months.
Well, that's a lot.
Because it interrupted all of the
back in the day.
It interrupted all of the main books for 4 months. It replaced issues of the main titles. So like Wolverine became Weapon X for 4 months and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think A is good. I think it's pretty. It's a pretty emblematic event, I would say.
It's very iconic.
Oh, for sure. What? Let's see. Let's pick out something random. What about Inhumans versus X-Men?
That's pretty middle ground for me, man. I don't think it's bad.
It's just there.
Yeah, I'd say a C or a D on mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna say C. It's just there. It was a thing.
It worked well enough to kind of wrap up that era of the books, and it gave us some good answers to like what was happening or what was going to be happening with the X-Men and with the Inhumans and stuff. But it didn't. That whole era of X-Men books was just not the most impressive. There was some good stuff here and there, but overall, it just wasn't the most impressive thing. So I'd say a C.
I actually agree with you, even though I'm biased because it's the Inhumans. I do think I do think the event could have been a little bit longer, maybe, because I think it'd be pretty interesting because there are a lot of Inhumans and there are a lot of 12 issues or something. And I do still. I think Civil War 2 should have been Inhumans versus X-Men and not whatever the hell they were doing with Mosaic and whatever. What about Siege?
Maybe a B from me.
Never read it.
It's a really solid wrap up for a lot of what Bendis had been doing since Avengers Disassembled. It brings all the big players back into the game. It ties up a lot of stuff that was happening across the Marvel universe. It works well as a follow-up to J. Michael Straczynski's Thor also. It's not anything that was like it wasn't super groundbreaking, but the thing about it that I really liked was that it was only 4 issues, and it knew exactly what it wanted to be. It wanted to just be an action-packed short event, and it had really cool action scenes because that's all it wanted to do. It had some really cool stuff with Sentry and with Thor and Loki, and it led towards a lot of cool stuff with the Heroic Age. going forward from there is where we saw Kieran Gillen would take over eventually on Journey into Mystery, following up some of the stuff that happened in here. So it's pretty solid. It's not great, but I'd say B because it's good and it does a good job of what they intended for it to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it's middle of the road. Like you said, it's very action packed. It's pretty fun. Nothing too groundbreaking for me, but I like it. I liked it. What about Axis?
I don't want my bias to take over.
I love Rick Remender, but I don't know.
This is a perfect example of something that it should not have been an event.
No.
It should have just been
A storyline
within Uncanny Avengers.
So I'm glad you brought this up. I'm not the only one that felt like this was kind of shoehorned into an event, right?
Yeah, because it was, and that was, I guarantee you that's exactly what happened. Was he came out there and was like leading all of this stuff into with Red Skull and Onslaught and all that stuff, and then Marvel was like, oh, we don't have an event scheduled, or we need a bigger event scheduled, so let's go ahead and make one out of this storyline. And then they created Axis. And it you can also tell that it wasn't, I don't think it was originally intended to be a full event because there weren't that many tie-ins. There was only like 3 miniseries, and then I think a couple of issues from other books that kind of tied into it. But like Deadpool, I think, had a tie-in issue. But it was very, very contained to basically just being about the characters within Uncanny Avengers fighting against the Red Onslaught.
Yeah. The thing is, I love his Uncanny Avengers too. It started off okay, but it got so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'd probably, it goes somewhere. I want to be realistic, and I'm going to say D. My bias would put it as a C, but realistically, I think it's a D event.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's marred by the fact that by what I assume was the publication getting in the way of it.
It's just it's stretched out into 9 issues, and it just did not need to be 9 issues.
Way too long.
It could have been like probably a 5-issue arc that he would have followed up anyway. Like because there's a lot of story after that deal with Red Skull and deal with that team. And so it would have just been the next story arc in that series, and it would have just continued forward as is. But they decided to kind of mess with all that and interrupt it. And I guarantee that the editorial interference on that was probably part of what pushed Remender to want to leave Marvel.
Yeah, and he hasn't been back since. He's been doing indie stuff.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, I think a D is a good ranking for it. What about, let's do Black Vortex, Guardians of the Galaxy, and X-Men, right?
Yeah.
I just thought as a cosmic event, it wasn't that spectacular. Cosmic. I think it was a little bit lackluster.
It wasn't cosmic-y?
Yeah,
it's just, the thing that was dumb about it is that it's co-written by Bendis, who was doing both Guardians and All New X-Men, and that's primarily the characters that were part of that. But it wound up being more of Sam Humphrey's event, tying into what he was doing with Star-Lord, with Peter's dad and stuff. And it just, the only thing that it did that kind of carried into anything else was it changed Angel, because it gave Angel his young Angel his like fiery wings. I don't even know what they actually were. So it didn't really do much at all. I don't know if it deserves to be an F like Civil War 2, but I also don't think that it's as good as the events that are in D. So I feel like I'd have to, by default, say it's an F, and Civil War 2 is like a Z.
Civil War 2 is so bad. There's nothing redeeming about that story. Yeah. Okay.
Civil War 2 is a pox.
What about Spider-Verse? One of my favorite Spider-Man
I
ever,
love
in my opinion.
Spider-Verse. It was so much fun. Spider-Verse was a blast all the way through. And I dug some of the tie-in stuff too. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I will not disagree on that one.
yeah, I wasn't a fan of how they collected it. I hated the hardcover collection on that. I'm gonna rank Civil War 2 as an A for me. I dug the hell out of it. I mean, not Civil War 2, Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
All the tie-ins were fun. The art in it is fantastic. Coipel and all these other guys just doing really cool stuff with the
Yeah.
mythology of the Spider-Verse and seeing all the versions of Spider-Man. That was really fun.
And it's something that obviously resonated not just within comic fans, but outside of that as well, because we now have the Into the Spider-Verse movie, which is expanding from there. And not only that, but we had it similar storylines happen in the cartoons, in like the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoons. So it permeated outside of comics. And then even after this, they did follow-up stuff. They had Web Warriors as a follow-up ongoing series that featured various different characters. Spider-Gwen spun out and still has her own series. And they followed it up with Spider-Geddon a couple years later. So
yeah, there were a lot of really cool characters that came out of that. Like you said, Spider-Gwen, Silk, like it was really a thing where it blew up the mythos a lot more, and we got a lot of cool stuff out of it.
What about Clone Conspiracy? Since we're talking Spider-Man,
never read it.
I'd say not as solid as Spider-Verse, so probably a B for me. It's got a really if you're a fan of the Clone Saga, and those characters, Ben Ryley and Miles Warren and stuff like that, it's got a lot of kind of fan service for you, and it does a really interesting job of a new portrayal of Ben Ryley as a character. It was solid. It's pretty solid, and it does a good job as a pretty important piece of Dan Slott's long-running Spider-Man series.
Also horribly collected in hardcover form.
Yeah, and the worst part about that was that they put a freaking map at the beginning of the hardcover to tell you what order you should read it in, but they put it out of order.
That's just lazy. You could tell that was a last-minute thing. They're like, I think people are going to be confused. Yeah, just slap an index over there. They won't mind.
Here you go, nerds.
Because I know there was, I don't remember who it was at Marvel who was explaining to people like why they collect things the way they do sometimes, and they're like, oh, well, we have to consider some people would like to read it this way and others like to read it this way. And it's like parts of that, like the tie-ins, I understand, but the way they put it in there, literally there were parts of it that say like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and they separate them because they're different series. And it's like, okay, you just made it difficult to read. Yeah, that's all you did.
It's a pain. I hate when I do that.
What about Spider Island? What do you guys think? I would.
It's been a little while since I read that one.
I think I would put it at a B level because you know, it was a really cool concept, but it's nothing too groundbreaking. But I do think it's well written, wonderful art by Humberto Ramos, and just at the end, it just devolves into like you know, a big bad guy fighting against Spider-Man and all that stuff. But
yeah, I won't disagree. Definitely fun. It was. I think it was like probably the first event that Slott wrote for Spider-Man too. I don't think there was anything else as far as like events go. And then after that, he did Ends of the Earth or whatever. But yeah, it was solid.
Spidey centric. Spider Island had a lot of tie-ins with other characters and stuff.
Yeah.
What the hell? The Atom. What about that?
It's not as.
I don't think I remember reading it, but I didn't. Yeah.
I'd say it's somewhere around the C or D area. It's not as pointless as Black Vortex was.
Yeah.
And has some pretty cool ideas in there, but it just didn't do a ton, at least not at that time. Like I think later on in Bendis's run, he brings back some of those characters and they do a little bit more, but I don't know, your mileage may vary just depending on basically people's opinions on Bendis and his writing and his X-Men run. I thought it was at least passable.
Yeah. I remember reading it. I don't remember a damn thing that it was about, so it's a D for me.
Yeah. That was what I was gonna say. I really don't.
All right, well, y'all can put it at D then.
If I don't remember reading it, then I'm just like, yeah, it's pointless.
I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna leave it at D level, and I'm gonna bump up this thing to C.
What?
The A versus X.
Okay.
Because I don't think, like, I do think that A versus X is better than Monster's Feared Self and Battle of the Atom and Axis. You know, it wasn't my favorite thing, but it was better than those, in my opinion. Next up, let's do. What do you guys think about Annihilation?
B.
Annihilation for me is one of it's A, almost teetering into S for me. Like I really, really loved that book.
I agree.
It's great. It's really good. It kicked off Marvel Cosmic the best way that it could for a year.
Yep. Yeah, plus just the whole event, really, you felt the pressure of it. Unlike earthly events, this was, grander in scale and anything could happen. You didn't know what the heck was going to happen. Plus, it brought back all the classic cosmic characters in a really fun and interesting way, and led to the eventual formation of the modern Guardians of the Galaxy. So,
yes. I also love the fact that in the Nova series, Richard Rider goes to Earth and he finds out what was going on in Civil War. And he's like, you guys were fucking fighting with each other and I was trying to save the universe.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like a commentary from Abnett and like the Abnett and Lanning stuff, simply because it didn't seem like at the time it wasn't getting enough love because it was going on during the Civil War stuff.
Mm-hmm. What about the sequel, Annihilation Conquest?
A for me. I like Conquest more.
I'd say it's at least at the same level.
Yeah. It's more lighter, the best way.
When do we start getting the Dark? Where do we get the Darkhawk stuff?
I think Darkhawk was in there.
Darkhawk
Let's go into Darkhawk territory. War of Kings.
It was War of Kings. That's right.
What about War of Kings? Yeah.
Well, it has Darkhawk, so C.
No, I really like War of Kings, and I think Geo is probably on the same level as me, where we have bias towards certain groups, because it deals a lot with the X-Men as far as Vulcan, and then for Geo it deals a lot with the Inhumans and their royal family, because that's all. It was a big war with, Black Bolt and Vulcan and stuff. It was really enjoyable. Especially like just being someone who had read so much of the X-Men stuff leading up to that, and then reading all the cosmic stuff leading up to that, it's such a great payoff. War of Kings and Realm of Kings together were. I'd have it for me. It is at least equal to the other two parts before it.
Yeah, I had a blast with that. The only thing I didn't really like was the constant artist change. Because for example, I really liked how Paul Pelletier drew the Inhumans. And I'm like, oh, that's so nice. And then the next issue, it's somebody else. And I'm like, ah. And then the other issue, they change it again. So that was a downer for me compared to the other events. But you guys think it's B level?
I could put it there.
Okay. Thanos. What the hell you call this? I forgot the name.
Imperative.
Imperative. Thank you. Thanos Imperative. What do you guys think?
I have not read this one.
I think that it was a really fantastic wrap up to everything that Abnett and Lanning were doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It had a really dramatic conclusion that set some characters off the playing field for a long time going forward.
Yep.
I don't know how they could have wrapped everything up even better than that. For me, I would have to say it's got to be an A.
I agree. It's a short event, but it's really cool. The implications.
Yeah.
You lose some characters that you were not expecting to, and yeah, the whole concept of like this is basically Marvel's dark metal thing, right? Because you have the whole Cancer verse,
Yeah,
and the dark characters inside. I liked it. I thought it was great.
and it's really self-contained because there's not a ton of tie-ins like the previous things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Thanos Imperative, its miniseries, and maybe a couple of one-shots around it. So it didn't have a lot of extra room to breathe, basically, and to kind of mess itself up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what do we think about Shadowland? I don't know why they put that there. I would have picked something else.
Have either of y'all read Shadowland?
No, no, I haven't. I'll be honest with you. I haven't.
This thing is fucking terrible. It's garbage, man. It's so fucking bad. Oh my god, it's so bad we don't even need to rank it. Let's just leave it off
There
the
you
table.
go. I'll just.
It's
I'll,
horrible.
you know.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I did not hate it when I finally read it because I think I had been exposed to because I skipped out on it when it was coming out, and then when they released the omnibus, I was like, all right, fuck it. Like I have every other Daredevil omnibus. I'm gonna have this fill the gap. And I read it, and I read it from the beginning of Diggle's run all the way through, and I skipped all the tie-ins. I didn't touch a single damn tie-in if it wasn't written by Diggle. And I was like, this is not great, but it's not like because Diggle's stuff was good. It started off really good, and I read through Shadowland. I'm like, it's not great, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And when paired with what Diggle was doing in his main series in Daredevil, not the miniseries, it actually wound up being pretty okay. And then it just kind of ends really quickly. Yeah. And then the aftermath of it is like there's a mini series, Daredevil Reborn, I think, and that did absolutely nothing. And then all of a sudden, Daredevil's back in Mark Waid's series. So I was like, oh, I don't feel like I had to read that at all.
It's so bad. It's horrible. No, it really is. It's the quintessential waste of time of comic. Coming off of Brubaker's amazing run, it's garbage. You don't need to read it. You shouldn't read it, and it should be wiped from Marvel's canon completely.
The thing that sucks is that it's like Diggle picks up exactly where Brubaker leaves off,
and Brubaker left in a good spot. Like, oh, this is good. This could get interesting.
And he picks it up, and he tells a really good story. And it's like he goes from really interesting, really good stuff to just, I don't know if he just stopped caring or something. And he's like, well, we just got to wrap this up. And then he just ends it. So I don't know. It makes it upsetting because especially if you've been reading Daredevil throughout Bendis and Brubaker's runs, you feel like you need to keep reading because it leaves on a cliffhanger at the end of Brubaker's stuff.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. So F material?
I won't argue. I'm not going to take that away from Luis.
Okay. What about Original Sin?
I know a lot of people didn't enjoy this, but I think it's at least C material.
I agree
it's got good artwork. it's relatively, even though it had a ton of tie-ins, it's relatively self-contained because each of the tie-ins tell a very separate story for each of the characters that they involve. It was an interesting event in itself in that it was kind of like a murder mystery type event. And it actually set up some really interesting stuff, like Nick Fury changing into the unseen, kind of a replacement for the Watcher. And then, of course, the biggest thing is it led towards Thor becoming unworthy. We don't know exactly why until a couple of years after that event, but I thought it was solid. It's and it's something that, like I said, it's self-contained. So if you want to read it, you really don't have to read anything before or after if you don't feel like it, and you'll get a full story, and it's decent.
I'll tell you what, one of the coolest things about that event, I liked it, but one of the coolest things was the marketing campaign at the local shops.
Yeah.
They were giving out real eyeballs from the Watcher, and I still have it. I still have my eyeball.
I never got one.
Yeah. It's a cool little bouncy ball, and it glows in the dark, and it's shaped like Uatu's eye. So that's really cool. That gets a C from me.
That's pretty dope, man.
What about Hickman's Infinity?
Ooh.
I'd give that an A personally.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that. Yeah.
To me, that was my favorite part of that run.
The best thing about it is like it's a big event and it doesn't skip a beat with what Hickman was doing. Like he's writing, and then it's so organic when he gets to this point that there's no question that this event should be happening. He intertwines the Infinity miniseries with both of his ongoing Avengers books seamlessly, and then after that, it just leads perfectly into the next era of Avengers books. It's just very well constructed. Tie-ins were okay. Some interesting stuff there, but just the main series with the all the stuff by Hickman, so expertly crafted.
Which is interesting because we talked about it with Axis, and it's sort of like the polar opposite of that.
Yeah, it's something where, like, Remender, his book was turned into an event where it didn't need to be an event. But I think here, Hickman probably knew exactly what he wanted to do as far as the structure of the story. And then Marvel was just like, oh, well, let's do some tie-ins around it. Yeah. And they actually put out a pretty decent amount of tie-ins, which leads me to believe they had some time to plan that ahead. Like, Hickman probably let them know, like, there's going to be a pretty big storyline happening, once I get about a year in or something. It's going to deal with Thanos and all these other characters, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, okay, cool. We're going to do some tie-ins. We'll let all these writers know that around this time, they'll need to, tie into that. Whereas Axis, they were just like, oh, you want to do this thing? It sounds like it could be an event. Let's make an event because we don't really have one going on right now. And he's like, what? No. Yeah, we'll do an event. And we'll have, Kevin Shinnick write a random Carnage series for it. What?
What about, since we're talking Hickman, what about Secret Wars?
S. No question.
Yep.
I agree.
And it honestly felt when you reached the end of Secret Wars, Hickman set it up for a reboot where they could restart the universe clean, and Marvel somehow fucked that up. Really, they could have just started at issue 1 and started the universe all over again, and somehow Marvel still fucked it up.
Oh boy. Yeah. What about the original Secret Wars?
I have a lot of bias towards that. For me personally, that's an S event because of how much I loved it, but I know that it's not realistically an S. It's probably a B at best.
I mean, yeah, it was the first integration of publicity, comic, toys, everything just coming together to form like the event. I don't know. Do you want to place it as a B?
I'd say that's pretty fair. Just going against my bias, it's a solid storyline. It has a lot of really fun plot points. dealing with
Yeah.
big characters, Doom and Galactus and the Beyonder introduced in here. A lot of cool stuff. I really, like I said, I really loved it. It means a lot to me. And if this was my list, my personal opinion, I would probably put it at the very top. But I know it's not perfect.
Because you're such an awesome dude. Here's what I'm gonna do, just for you. I'm gonna take Civil War off A, and I'm gonna add it to A. There you go.
Nice. Thank you, Gio.
All right, we got two more. Let's do Infinity Wars, which is pretty.
I'm actually looking forward to rereading that right now. It just came out in hardcover. Because I don't remember a lot about it. I remember thinking it was really cool. There was a lot of
because we're on.
Well, there's a lot of good concepts in there. There's a lot of cool stuff that happened. It was wrapping up what was going on in God, who was writing Guardians at that time?
Dugan?
It was Jerry Dugan's Guardians run. He was wrapping up a lot of stuff from that. It was really solid. Like I would say at least a B on that one is my opinion. It was really enjoyable. It did a good job of wrapping up his stuff with the cosmic things. It had some really great artwork from start to finish, and a lot of really fun tie-ins too. That's where, I don't know if y'all saw any of the Infinity Warps stuff, but they had like the Soldier Supreme. It was a fusion of Captain America and Doctor Strange. Arachnite was a Moon Knight and Spider-Man, stuff like that. Really, really cool little amalgamations of characters.
And last but not least, Secret Empire. Where would you place it?
I personally would put it as a C.
I agree with that.
It's not bad.
I just like it because it pissed off all the little fanboys out there.
It's not bad at all. It's a hot item because of the series that it came off of.
It was
the whole Hydra Cap thing.
Yeah.
And I know it pissed off a lot of people from the get-go with that stuff, but I was someone who was sitting there like super interested in seeing what was going to happen and how they were going to wrap it all up. And it wrapped up pretty decently. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. It just wasn't, it didn't stick the landing as heavily as it needed to really make up for all of the flack that it had gotten from, well, not to make up for it, but to impress those people who were upset with that Cap run.
Yeah.
What was really funny to me is that it's like Spencer was writing two polar opposite books at that time. Like, he was writing the Steve Rogers book where he was Hydra and he was super like fascist Captain America. And then he was writing the most extremely liberal Captain America with the Falcon series. Literally, the book, I think one of them was titled like #not my Captain America. So he went with both polar opposites on that, but no one paid attention to Falcon. They only paid attention to his Hydra Cap series. And if they had paid attention to both sides, there wouldn't be all this like flame wars about political content and stuff like that. But people only pay attention to what hits the news.
That's the stupidest nerd shit ever. Not my Captain. What a fucking loser. I'm sorry.
Okay, so there you go. Before we wrap, because we are at an hour, and I just wanted to ask both of you, since this list, I didn't make it, it was already made, if you could add, what changes could you make to this final version that we have here, and what events would you add, maybe one or two that you would like to see ranked here on this list?
Well, there needs to be like something lower than F for Civil War II. Number one.
That's easy. We call that Shadowline.
I think that it could use a lot more events from like pre-2000s era.
Yeah.
Because it has the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, it has Secret Wars 1, but there's a lot of other stuff that could be included in there, including a bunch of X-Men events. Like it doesn't include anything like Mutant Massacre, Fall of the Mutants, Inferno, any of those events. They're all gone. It has, Age of Apocalypse, but we've missed everything else basically on the X-Men side.
Well, if you could choose out of all those X-Men events, like 2 that you would rank on this list, because I do want to modify it and post it later on and add those events. What would you add from the X-Men to this list? Just 2, because we're running out of time.
Oh man, come back to me in a second, Luis. You tell him some stuff.
Wait, what was the question? I'm high right now.
If you if you could add 2 more events that are not present in this list, what events would that be, and where would you place them?
Oh, okay. Damn. That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, man. You covered most of the big ones.
I can't see the chat. Maybe somebody in the chat said added a suggestion.
Yeah, Onslaught's not on there, which is surprising. That's huge.
All right, where would you place Onslaught?
I haven't read Onslaught myself, so I wouldn't know where to put it. But I know that I think that some of the derided events like Onslaught and the Clone Saga should be in there. Those 2 should be in there, and I guarantee a lot of people would put them towards the bottom, the D's and the F's and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that I would. God, the thing is, you say 2, and I'm like thinking between 3 events. The 3 big like X-Men events from Claremont's era are Mutant Massacre.
Yeah, let's do those 3.
So Mutant Massacre, Fall of the Mutants, and Inferno. Inferno gets a lot of hate, but for me personally, I thought it did a really excellent job of wrapping up a lot of what Claremont was doing with the X-Men, and also a lot of what Louise Simonson had been doing with X Factor and New Mutants. Like a lot of things kind of came to a head there. Madelyn Pryor, and all that stuff. And I would put it at least as a B. I would put.
Okay. Oh, sorry. What's up? Sorry, no, go ahead. Sorry.
So that one would go as a B. Mutant Massacre would be, I think, Mutant Massacre might be an S. It might be like the pinnacle of that era of X-Men events, and then as an A would be Fall of the Mutants, because it was good, but there was a little bit too much with the tie-ins, and some of it seemed kind of inconsequential with the New Mutants. But as far as the Uncanny X-Men and X-Factor storylines go, that's A material for me.
Good shit. All right, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. These 2 events are not done yet, but they're ongoing. Where would you currently put Hickman's X-Men and Donny Cates' Carnage?
Ooh.
Hickman's X-Men is an S for me. It's so goddamn good so far.
Yeah, I think that's going to get the S. His whole Dawn of X stuff is going to go in the S. I think Donny Cates' Carnage is probably going to be an A. At the very least, it's going to be an A.
Yeah.
Right now.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. I mean, that is the final list, but I will post it on social media with the added books that we just mentioned. On
Hello?
We lost Gio.
We just lose Gio at the end of the stream? There we go.
Let me stop. No, I'm here. Sorry. Cut off. Stop sharing. And we're back. Okay. So, I hope everybody liked that. Everybody in the comments section, leave your rankings, because I personally like doing that stuff. It's fun, and we get to go over events and all that stuff, and comics and stuff. Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. And before we wrap things up, if you want to get any of these books, you want to read any of these epic events, you can try and find these books. I do know that some of them might be out of print, but who knows? They might be in stock when you go look now. So go ahead and do that. Go to instocktrades.com where you can get your collected editions and manga. Can't forget about the manga, up to 50% off. Loyalty discounts tack on an extra 2% of that. And if you order $50 or more in your collected editions order shipment thing, you get free shipping. God bless free shipping. Fantastic customer service, wonderful packaging that you can only get by visiting instocktrades.com. Yeah. You know, I was going to throw the banner. There we go. Visit our sponsor, instocktrades.com.
There it is. Don't worry, guys. Jeff will be back next week.
Yeah, Jess is on assignment. We have him doing some research. He will be back Sunday. And we'll see. We were angry that he dumped his cosmic omnibuses, so we'll see what happens. Don't worry about it.
He would have teetered the opinions on those events quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of disappointed we didn't wait for him to be on there.
I thought he was going to be. When I was driving home, I'm like, man, Jess is going to hate those books.
We got to do this again sometime. Yeah. Good idea, Gio. Good idea.
Yeah. I mean, there are a ton that we can do, from actual comic characters, other DC events. We can do like an X-Men one. I don't know. We can do more ranking.
We could do DC next week if you guys are up for it.
I think aren't we doing Omnibros next week?
Manga?
Yeah.
Otaku Bros, Manga Bros.
What do we call it?
Otaku,
Bros.
Manga bro.
Then we can do a list for Shonen Jump titles.
Oh, there is a list, and it's massive. We will be there for like 2 hours because
we'll be there all night. We will be there.
But I'll find something. Don't worry about it.
All right.
So with that said, we're gonna wrap things up. Thank you everybody in the chat for tuning in. You are wonderful, and we love every single one of you guys. Even if you don't like Inhumans versus X-Men, that's okay. Guys, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on my channel, Ryleymo, RYLEYMO. I am currently in the process of unpacking all my books to put on the new shelves, and as soon as I get that done, I'm going to try and get a video to show my new setup.
Nice. Congrats.
Thank you.
Luis?
You can find me at Comics Guide 101 down there. You can find me there at Comics Guide 101 on Twitter and YouTube. It's the best way to get a hold of me. New videos go up Monday through Thursday, and Friday tomorrow is going to be Q&A at 8 o'clock.
Awesome. And you can find me at A Week in Geekdom, where I talk about anime, comics, manga, and a whole bunch of stuff. A Week in Geekdom here on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. God bless. Have a safe day, night, or whatever it may be. Stay safe and just be good out there. Bye.
Hello? This is still on. Hi, guys.